Tonight, the end of the road for Holden. General Motors axes the iconic Australian brand. Also tonight, allegations of a culture of cover-up at a top Melbourne Catholic school. 200 Australians to be evacuated from a cruise ship in Japan and quarantined in Darwin. And Australia named as the team to beat in the T20 Women's World Cup. Good evening, Tamara Oudyn with ABC News. It's been a household name for decades, but Holden has now been parked for good. Parent company General Motors has announced it will axe the brand by the end of the year, with the loss of around 600 Australian jobs. For Holden owners, the company has pledged to provide at least 10 more years of customer service. Our reporter James Hancock is at Holden's Australian headquarters in Port Melbourne and joins me now. So James, where will the bulk of those job losses be felt?
Tam, from right here in Melbourne, Holden says that the vast majority of the 600 job losses are from its headquarters here at Port Melbourne. Others are going from its testing ground at Lang Lang, southeast of the city. It's been a devastating day for Holden workers, many crying after learning of the company's demise. Holden started out as a saddlery in the 1850s, but now this iconic Australian company is gone.
What's your favourite car, Australia?
Holden! It's been ingrained in Australia's identity for decades.
We love football, meat pies, kangaroos and Holden cars.
But after 160 years, the Holden name will soon be relegated to history.
This is a tough day for the Holden family.
3 generations of Cara Bertoli's family have driven Holdens, and she even worked for the company.
When you're loyal to the brand, you kind of hope as much as you can that it doesn't happen.
Holden's American owner, General Motors, wants out by the end of the year, saying the brand is no longer a wise investment.
We locally tried everything to keep Holden going until it was evident it would take good money after bad.
There are still 1.6 million Holdens on the road, but sales hit the skids years ago.
The writing's been on the wall for quite some time. Holden's sales have been in free fall for the last 3 years.
Following the Second World War, it was quite a different story.
Australia needed a special motor car.
Sales soared when the first FX was launched. The boom times continued for the FJ, the Kingswood, Tirana, Monaro, and its most popular model, the Commodore.
A new kind of car for Australia.
By the 1990s and 2000s, the company was feeling the pressure from overseas car makers, including Toyota and Mazda. It gradually laid off thousands of staff at its Adelaide and Melbourne plants before bringing local manufacturing to an end 2 years ago.
We knew that it was tough times for them, but certainly didn't expect that they would leave Australia.
Holden's exit also came as a shock to the federal government.
Australian taxpayers put billions into this multinational company, and they let the brand just wither away on their watch.
And it's disappointing that they only advised the government of this decision just before their announcement.
General Motors' New Zealand and Thailand operations are also being shut down. Holden has 185 dealers in Australia and another 31 in New Zealand, and the company has promised to fairly compensate them. James Hancock, ABC News, Melbourne.
One of Melbourne's most prestigious Catholic schools has been rocked by the revelation that its headmaster gave a character reference for a now convicted sex offender. St Kevin's College in Toorak hit the headlines last year when its students were filmed singing a sexist chant on a tram. Now, a Four Corners investigation has revealed that a Year 9 boy was shocked to learn that both the headmaster and a current senior teacher gave references for his perpetrator. Louise Milligan reports, and a warning some viewers may find this story confronting.
St Kevin's College student Paris Street was a star runner. He was trained by a man who had coached the school's students for 40 years. But in 2014, Paris became aware Peter Keogh was becoming interested in more than his running.
I said that I had a Japanese oral presentation that I needed to finish, and he said that's not the only oral you'll have to do.
What did you think when he said that?
felt very uncomfortable.
Keogh also sent Paris inappropriate Facebook messages saying things like he loved him muchly and kiss, kiss, kiss. The offending escalated when Keogh insisted on bringing Paris to his home.
He said, "Do you know why I was looking forward to today's training session?" He said that he had got an erection.
Police charged Peter Keogh with grooming for sexual conduct with a child under 16.
After the court case in 2015, Paris Street was shocked to learn that the current Dean of Sport at St Kevin's had given character evidence for Keogh. He also discovered that the college's headmaster, Stephen Russell, had written a reference for after Keogh was convicted of the grooming offence.
How did you feel about that?
Just gutted.
It is quite extraordinary that a headmaster and the Dean of Sport in particular will basically disregard the vulnerable student and support an offender. I mean, what planet are we on?
St Kevin's headmaster Stephen Russell declined to comment on writing the reference for Peter Keogh, but said in a statement that after conviction, Keogh was banned from entering the school or having contact with its students. Louise Milligan, ABC News.
The embattled council at the City of Casey is likely to be dismissed after the state government gave the go-ahead for its sacking today. The council has been the focal point of an anti-corruption inquiry into donations made by property developers. For more on this, I'm now joined by state political reporter Bridget Rollison. So, Bridget, walk us through what happened today.
Well, State Cabinet agreed to get rid of the council at its meeting this afternoon after an IBAC inquiry heard some pretty explosive evidence that property developer John Woodman bribed some City of Casey councillors so they'd vote in favour of his planning developments. One of the councillors at the centre of the corruption inquiry, Councillor Sam Aziz, allegedly received nearly $1 million from property developer John Woodman. Now, Councillor Aziz has been living in Egypt for the past few months, and it's not known when or if he'll return to give evidence at the public hearings, which resume next month.
And Bridget, what's likely to happen next?
Well, legislation to sack the council still has to pass both houses of state parliament, which sits this week. But as we reported last week, 2 councillors have already resigned, saying that they'd lost faith in the council. But we expect the remaining 9 councillors to lose their jobs by the end of the week.
Bridget Rollison, thank you. Guards in Victoria's youth justice system say their workplaces are becoming unsafe. And the statistics back that up. At Malmesbury and Parkville, staff assaults have more than doubled in 2 years, with 130 incidents recorded in the past financial year alone. And that's caused the Department of Justice's work cover premiums to also rise sharply to the point where it's now costing the state $4 million a month for insurance. Beth Gibson reports.
Anthony Dunbar worked at the Malmesbury Youth Justice Centre for just 2.5 weeks.
We were basically having codes every single day. There was just assault after assault all the time.
Days after he witnessed an attempted stabbing on another worker, he was hit in the side of the head by a young person holding a TV remote.
And I'm 6'3", and I'm looking eye to eye with him, and he's a bit more heavier set than me, so they're not little boys or anything.
His fractured eye socket took 11 weeks to heal.
I could have lost the sight in my eye because it was near an optical nerve.
Assaults at Malmesbury and Parkville have more than doubled in recent years, from 58 in 2016-17 to 130 just 2 years later. The department's monthly work cover insurance premiums have jumped from $1.6 to $4.2 million in the same period, resulting in a bill of more than $42 million in the last financial year. Anthony is one of 144 youth justice staff who claimed work cover last financial year.
That seemed to go through pretty easy. It was almost as if it was standard operation.
The union is calling for a 3.5% pay rise for guards to acknowledge the danger of the job.
We say given the complexity and the nature of their work, they certainly deserve a lift in pay.
The state government is pinning its reform of the system on a new youth justice centre being built at Cherry Creek near Werribee. The union says the new facility is too far away.
We currently have about 18 months lead time where we're still going to have these assaults occurring in facilities that have really past their prime.
Anthony's eye has fully healed and he's returned to his other job since leaving Malmesbury.
That's a ridiculous thing to have to go into a workplace and know that there's a chance that that's going to happen to you.
In a statement, Victoria's Youth Justice Minister Ben Carroll said violence against staff is unacceptable and the state government is spending more than $1 billion across the system. Beth Gibson, ABC News.
Australians stranded on board the Diamond Princess cruise ship in Japan amidst a coronavirus outbreak will be evacuated by the federal government. 200 passengers will be flown home on Wednesday, but they'll have to spend another 14 days in quarantine in Darwin. Concern has been building that the disease could spread internationally if any outbreaks on cruise ships aren't handled properly. Tokyo correspondent Jake Sturmer reports from the ship's port in Yokohama.
After nearly 2 weeks of quarantine, Australians aboard the Diamond Princess have a ticket home.
I have a job that I have to go back to.
The Australian government will charter a Qantas flight to bring passengers back on Wednesday, but it comes at a cost. Another 2 weeks of quarantine at a former workers' village in Darwin.
This is just a little too late. Why couldn't they have made this decision 10 days ago?
It's frustrating and it's unfortunate, but it is absolutely necessary to ensure that we put the measures in place that have been so effective.
The US evacuated hundreds of its citizens early this morning.
All right, this is it. We're about to step into the big wide world.
Americans who tested negative for the virus were allowed to board a chartered jet home.
As the infection rate continues to grow, ambulances are now coming in and out of this port constantly. The question is the outbreak on board contained or is it still spreading? Nearly 10% of the 3,700 passengers and crew who were on the Diamond Princess are believed to have contracted the virus. But there's a potentially even more dangerous scenario now unfolding. A passenger who disembarked another cruise ship, the MS Westerdam in Cambodia, has since tested positive. The 83-year-old American took a flight with more than 140 other passengers to Malaysia's capital, where the infection was detected. It's unclear whether passengers who continued on to their home countries may have also been infected, as well as the more than 1,000 passengers who flew home from Phnom Penh, raising fears the virus could spread well beyond the 26 countries so far affected. 39 Australians remain in Cambodia's capital.
They are in the process of being tested by Cambodian authorities. 10 Australians have remained on the ship itself as it is docked in Sihanoukville. The Cambodian government is making arrangements to test those people who remained on the ship.
The owner of the Westerdam, Holden America, says it's trying to track down the hundreds of people who were able to head home to make sure no one else has been infected. It's that prospect which has health authorities worried, a turning point to a potential pandemic. Jake Sturmer, ABC News, Yokohama.
The ABC has lost a legal challenge over a federal police raid on its Sydney headquarters last year. Officers seized 89 documents relating to reports about Australian soldiers accused of unlawful killings in Afghanistan. The national broadcaster says today's court ruling is further evidence of the need for protections for public interest journalism and whistleblowers.
It was this AFP raid on the ABC's Sydney headquarters last year that prompted the national broadcaster to question its legality.
I think fundamentally the court rules that the AFP have the right to enter a newsroom, to fossick around in confidential files, to take information about the way it undertakes its journalism with its sources, and this should send a chill down all of our citizens' spines.
The AFP officers were after information on a series known as the Afghan Files, which involved allegations of unlawful killings by Australian soldiers in Afghanistan. The reports relied on leaked defence documents. The search of more than 9,000 confidential documents has been described by the ABC's managing director as an attempt to intimidate journalists for doing their jobs. It's a blow for public interest journalism and a blow for the Australian public's right to know.
I make of it that the court case has been run and it's had a finding.
The issue here is with the government, which pretends that it cares about press freedom, but does nothing to protect or advance it in our community.
For the journalists Dan Oakes and Sam Clark, who wrote the stories, there's still no decision on whether they will face charges.
There's nothing wrong, in fact, with any of the stories that were published. There's no sense that we did anything to jeopardise national security or anything else, and yet these two journalists still have no clarity over whether they'll be charged with a crime for doing their jobs.
But the AFP says this investigation is still ongoing, so it would be inappropriate to comment. It says it respects the court's decision. Liv Casbin, ABC News, Sydney.
Still to come this hour, the banks accused of turning a blind eye to internet scammers.
They don't care what name's written on any money transfer.
They're allowing a scam. They're facilitating fraud.
There are so many problems with false billing these days.
Also, what rights do you have when the government wants your land for a major project? That's coming up.
Despite threats of retaliation from Turkey, Syrian troops continue to advance against the last rebel-held enclaves in the country's northwest. In Aleppo, state media showed residents celebrating on the streets after Syrian forces regained control of the city. Opposition fighters pulled back from the province after Russian warplanes mounted heavy airstrikes. The rebels were also driven from the key highway linking Aleppo to Damascus and are now squeezed into a shrinking area of nearby Idlib province. Turkey has urged Russia to stop the attacks, and a new round of talks is scheduled for this week. Britain has been hit by the second big storm in a week, with extensive flooding and at least one death. The south of Wales bore the brunt of Storm Dennis, with houses submerged and cars washed away when local rivers broke their banks.
As we were trying to block the front door, it was all pouring in through the back door as well, and there was nothing we could do.
Thousands of homes are without power as rescue workers carry out evacuations and search for those unaccounted for. Back home now, and almost $10 million has been raised from a bushfire relief concert held in Sydney at the weekend. British rock band Queen, fronted by Adam Lambert, headlined yesterday's Firefight Australia concert. More than 20 other acts also performed, raising funds for communities devastated by bushfires. In a filmed message, Prince William sent his family's support.
We want to commend the bravery and the resilience of all Australians involved, particularly the volunteer firefighters who have put their lives on the line to protect lives, livelihoods, wildlife. We think that's been a fantastic effort.
75,000 people attended the show, which was broadcast live around the world. The bushfire recovery effort is so immense, even backpackers are being urged to help out. Whether it's working on farms or helping to rebuild communities, their efforts will be rewarded with extended visas.
They're young and fit and looking for adventure. Now the government is hoping a backpacker army will soon be coming to the aid of communities devastated by bushfires.
There is so much work to do. We need all hands on deck, and that includes the international backpackers who we know want to make their contribution as well.
These backpackers in Sydney's King's Cross are ready to jump at the chance. Particularly given that it will be considered part of the 88 days of farm work they need to complete to be able to stay another year.
I think it's wonderful because Australia needs this thing to reforest all the bushfires.
I think it's brilliant. We was going to volunteer anyway, but now that it comes for the 88 days, that's even better.
Because it helps the country and also it helps us to be able to stay, so I think it's fair enough from both sides.
Volunteers from an organisation called Blaze Aid are already hard at work helping to rebuild fences.
There's been quite a massive interest internationally with the bushfires. A lot of young people have wanted to come out and help. They can come out now.
For American backpacker Taylor Unger, the offer has come a little too late.
I'm thrilled. I think it's a great idea. I just wish it would have happened sooner, whether it's planting trees, helping the animals, something like that. I would have really loved to get more involved.
a chance to give back before continuing the journey. Ursula Malone, ABC News, Sydney.
The Australian dollar crept a little higher today, while the local share market ended flat. Here's Alan Kohler.
The exchange rate has stayed around 67 US cents for about a fortnight, while the US dollar has appreciated about 2%. So the Aussie has kept up with it, which is a little surprising since the US dollar has been bid up as a safe haven currency in the light of worries about the coronavirus, whereas the Australian economy is the most exposed in the West to China, so arguably no safe haven. And here's one aspect of that exposure. Chinese students in Australia, a five-fold increase in 15 years, from 50,000 to 250,000, mostly in higher education. And here's an indication of what's happened to the travel plans of Chinese people. It's a chart of daily visitor arrivals in Hong Kong, down from 220,000 per day to fewer than 3,000. And something similar is going on here. But investors on the share market seem more concerned with finding opportunities to make money out of it, like Zuno Group, which makes hand sanitisers, and shot up 25% today. Brambles reported a decent interim profit. AMP is still basking in the glow of its $2.5 billion loss. The radiology software firm Pro Medicus, which took investors on a wild ride last year from $10 to $40 and then back to $20, had some harsh treatment today after its results last week. And CBA ended a four-day run of gains that added $12 billion to its market value. The Chinese share market has now regained almost all of what it lost after the Lunar New Year holiday, and commodities were mostly a bit weaker, apart from gold and black gold. And that's finance.
Australia is the team to beat in the Women's T20 World Cup. Ahead of Friday's opening game, captains of the 10 teams faced the cameras at Sydney's Taronga Zoo and admitted that it's going to be a tough competition. National Sport reporter David Mark was there.
This may be the last time for a month that the captains of the 10 teams competing for the World Cup will be this relaxed.
Are you doing that? No, that's the word.
Most of them nominated Australia to defend the cup they won in 2018, but some other teams are clearly a threat.
I think England. I'm going to go with India. I think South Africa.
I will supporting all the team.
Women's cricket has been growing and becoming ever more competitive, thanks in part to the WBBL, which attracts some of the world's best players, including 8 of New Zealand's T20 squad.
Yeah, we had microphones hooked up in all the change rooms as well, so it's great intel for us.
Australia will go into the competition as favourite, but recent losses and the scratchy form of star batter and wicketkeeper Elisa Healy, who scored just 15 runs in 5 innings in the recent tri-series with India and England, is a concern.
And she's gone. Her poor run of form continues.
There's no doubt she would have loved to score some more runs in the tri-series, but I think she's shown, especially over the last 2 years, how good she is and how dangerous she is.
With quality players like that, you just got to keep backing them in because they can win your matches.
It's been a long and disjointed cricket season for the men and the women, and with the football seasons already ramping up, there are concerns that this event might be coming too late. But Australia's captain, Meg Lanning, isn't worried about capturing the public's attention.
Yeah, it's going to be some really high-quality cricket, so I think that will certainly get people to the games and watching.
Officials are hoping a crowd of up to 100,000 will pack the MCG for the final in March. Australia will open the tournament against India in Sydney on Friday, with everyone looking to get in the picture. David Mark, ABC News.
Australia's Adam Scott has broken a 4-year drought on the US PGA Tour with victory in Los Angeles this morning. A birdie on the 17th hole helped Scott gain control on a tough final day at the Riviera Country Club. Scott kept his composure on the 18th hole to claim a 2-stroke win.
Yeah. It's official.
It's amazing. I've loved this place from day one, and it was tough out there today, but the crowd is incredible. I feel like they're on my side here, believe it or not, and I'm stoked with this.
The 39-year-old joins Cameron Smith and Mark Leishman as Australian winners on the US Tour so far this year. Australian Ben Simmons has scored 17 points in Team LeBron's win over Team Giannis in the NBA All-Star Game in Chicago. The game paid tribute to the four-time All-Stars MVP Kobe Bryant, who died in a helicopter crash last month. The emphasis on crowd-pleasing basketball suited Simmons, who was involved in some spectacular plays. Team Giannis finished the first half in style.
Young from center court, yes! With the three from center court.
The team led by LeBron James had the better of the second half to win by 2 points. Heralded as Australia's original Crocodile Dundee, Territory legend Peter Panquis has passed away aged 85. The prolific buffalo hide and croc hunter was instrumental in setting up a CSIRO research centre at a site that would later become Kakadu National Park. And a warning to Aboriginal viewers, this story contains images of people who have died.
Tales of Peter Panquis' bush skills are legendary.
He was the Crocodile Dundee, he was the Buffalo Bill, he was the Australian version of every Western hero a kid had ever thought of, you know. He was amazing, yeah.
The Chinese and Aboriginal-born Territorian had already received a significant bush education by the time he was removed under the Aborigines Protection Act and taken to live at the Retta Dixon home in Darwin.
Met Mum there, and then they were married, and that was 64 years ago, almost 65 this year would have been.
It was a frontier era in the Territory's history. Crocodile hunting was a legal and lucrative industry, and Peter Panquis was one of many supplying skins to an international market. With the outlawing of crocodile hunting in the early 70s, he started work with the CSIRO.
Peter's intimate knowledge of the landscape and the ecology of the area really helped set up what became hundreds of scientific papers published on ecosystem functioning and the management of landscapes up in the north.
Colleagues remember him as slow to anger and quick to forgive.
A very good bushman. We could go into an area where we hadn't been before, drive around all day, and he'd come right back out on the same track we went in on.
Peter Panquis' knowledge was critical in establishing the CSIRO's Kapalga Research Station at a site that would later make up part of Kakadu National Park. Research from the station underpinned Kakadu's World Heritage listing. It's an extraordinary Australian story that's been honoured with an Order of Australia medal and a billabong in his name.
And I've certainly very much through my career been thankful for the legacy of Peter and other people like him who worked with him and helped establish what became a great body of scientific research.
Peter Panquis is survived by his wife and 7 children. Letitia Lemke, ABC News, Darwin.
Time for the weather now. Here's Paul Higgins.
And town looks like we're in for a stormy day tomorrow, and the humidity should also be going away for a while anyway. Most places had a cool start to Monday. Mount Baw chilliest was 7, stayed above 20 at Albury-Wodonga. Blue skies for much of the state today. Still had some cloud and drizzle though near the Gippsland coast. Kyabram, Oudyn and Rutherglen had 35 degrees as their high. It was Melbourne City's coolest morning for more than a week, even though 15 degrees is still above average. Today's high 25.6 at 3:37 p.m, 30 or 31 in our north and in the Yarra Valley, and right now it's 24 degrees. 36 degrees in Cairns today, feeling more like 39. Thunderstorms hit parts of Sydney around lunchtime. They were quite widespread over northern New South Wales. And in fact, you can see them here developing as the day goes on. There is a pressure trough and a cold front lurking in the bight. Now, tomorrow, this trough over Victoria will deepen as an upper level disturbance moves in. It will become a low over Bass Strait tomorrow night. So we're in for a very unsettled sort of day, and we'll have showers and thunderstorms moving in. Canberra and Sydney will also have showers and storms in the afternoon. In Brisbane and Adelaide, partly cloudy. Becoming cloudy in Hobart. Perth will be mostly sunny. Back home, There's a chance of high-base thunderstorms early tomorrow, but as the day goes on, those showers and storms will increase. As you can see, severe storms over central and eastern parts. Staying dry, though, in the northwest, but you could have some raised dust. Cooler west to southwest winds will spread from the west. It'll be a humid day before those cooler winds move in with the change. On the bays, an east to northeasterly at 10 knots, tending westerly to 20 knots for the afternoon. Gales on the west coast, strong winds on the central and east Gippsland coasts. Well, muggy and mild in Melbourne tonight, 19 the low. We could get an early morning thunderstorm from high-base clouds, so not much rain from that. But heading into the afternoon, increasing showers and thunderstorms, 24 the high, before a late morning cool change. Much less humid Wednesday and a few showers, 20. Thursday and Friday both cloudy with a slight chance of a shower, 19 degrees, but brighter on the weekend. Mostly sunny Saturday, 22, and Sunday, 29, as the wind goes around to the north. 33 next Monday, Tam.
Thank you, Paul. And that's it for this evening's bulletin. Lee Sales is up next with 7:30.